never send a boy to fight a man's war!
Enough said. C tier.
Hunter!
Solid character, good damage, good mobility. The glaives are really fun. She scales well late into runs. Her secondary abilities are significantly better than her first, but once you get those second abilities, the amount of synergy they have with various items, such as the predatory instincts and lensmaker glasses, is insane, and it just gives you so much value. Being able to sprint while using most of your abilities is extremely nice. It allows you to stay on the move constantly and not really have to slow down, which is pretty critical in a game like Risk of Rain 2, and also doing this with glaives is extremely satisfying. Ultimately, her greatest weakness is her range, as she cannot hit past 20 meters. While this isn't essential to do well in Risk of Rain 2, a lot of characters can hit past 20 meters, and it can be useful every now and then to hit far away wisps or enemies that are simply outside of that 20 meter range. She's a solid character, so in my view, she gets a B tier.
Stop! Thief! Come back, thief!
Bandit is my boy. I'm sure everyone has their experience unlocking Bandit and immediately maining him for the next 20 hours of playtime. He's a great character. He does a ton of damage really quickly, really easily, super easy to learn. You just gotta go behind enemies and give them back shots. There's not much to say about him. He's just super solid. He may be slightly limited by range, but that's less of an issue when he has his revolver as a sidearm that resets on cooldown, allowing for some really satisfying wisp aim training, which is my favorite thing to do with him. His alternative second abilities are just as good, usually stacking shots of Desperado in order to do a massive amount of damage all in one shot. Overall, a great character, A tier.
Big boop!
Multi, he's a little weird. Multi does great damage, has a lot of versatility, and is kind of fun to play. But he is so slow. That's ultimately the only thing really holding him back, and obviously that can be fixed with items, so it's less of an issue as you get better at the game and start stacking things like goat hooves or red whips. His nail gun is extremely good. It hits multiple times, procs a bunch of items really fast, though it does have a lower proc chance. It's very good paired with anything like the tri-tip dagger or anything that triggers on multiple hits such as sticky bombs. Rebuy is super strong. It's basically a sniper. You can't really go wrong with it. The rocket launcher's not very good. You basically never use it. Swords may not be good, but they are extremely funny. Other than that, his other abilities are pretty lackluster. His mobility tool is alright. It makes you tanky, which is nice, but only for a bit. You can't stay in it. Retool is good for having multiple equipments. There's a lot of synergies you can do with that, but power mode is where he becomes really, really good. With power mode, you get a bunch of armor, can stay in the mode as long as you want, can switch out of it whenever you want, and you get two of your weapons out at once rather than having one or the other out. This makes him extremely good and makes a bunch of builds really viable depending on which crime rates you pick. With double swords, you can just walk around and melee people. It's great. It's all fun and games until the flying enemies arrive. Like, how am I supposed to hit this guy? Look, I may not play him often, and he may not be the best in the game, but he's definitely above average, and his nail gun single-handedly makes the character. Therefore, he's an A tier.
And another thing, you're ugly.
Yes, I'm biased. Engineer is S tier. Engineer is just great. You just place down your turrets, they copy all your items, you make some insane combos, and everyone explodes. You lack mobility, sure. It doesn't matter, because unlike Multi who's just slow, Engineer has a normal speed, so he can better his mobility with items, and he doesn't have to stack 25 million goat hooves to make it work. You can stack mines on top of your turrets to make them little suicide bombers. You have missiles. He's flawless. There's nothing else to say here. And yes, I use carbonizer turrets. So, a lot of people think Artificer is pretty bad. And they'd be right. Artificer's biggest issue is her cooldowns. Her primary attack is on a cooldown. That means items that increase attack speed only speed up the rate at which she consumes her ammo, not the rate at which they recharge. Obviously that means cooldown reducing items can help her, but those typically are reserved for red items like Alien Head, so you know, not easy to stack. This makes Artificer pretty average. Her one benefit is that she can stay in the air a long time. The issue is, she doesn't have good mobility. Despite being able to fly, she can't move quickly in the air. So she ends up just being kind of underwhelming. Using her jetpack near any boost pad results in some funky behaviour. I guess this is just my life now. Quite obviously belongs in C tier. In Risk-a-Rain, being a melee character is somewhat of a death sentence. This is because a lot of enemies, including fire elites, do large amounts of damage at close range only. So then what happens when you have a melee only character? You get a pretty underwhelming survivor. He's not as bad as characters like Artificer or Commando, but he relies heavily on getting items early game to keep him alive and keep him going, much more than other characters do, which can make it difficult to get runs off the ground if you don't get the correct items. However, Mercenary does have a few redeeming qualities. His special ability gives him invincibility, kind of insane, and can actually be abused if you get the cooldown low enough where you can just spam it infinitely. Overall, not a great character, goes in C tier. Rex is all about healing items. It's quite simple. You grab healing items, you do a bunch of damage by dealing damage to yourself, and you heal it all back with those healing items. It's a risky strategy due to one-shot protection. If you don't know, one-shot protection in Risk-a-Rain 2 prevents one lethal hit from one-shotting you completely, getting you down to really low health instead. This is always active if you're above a certain health threshold, but if your health gets just a little bit too low from full, you can just get one shot and instantly die. This makes him very vulnerable and kind of fragile. Rex is always sitting around 70 to 80% health. Rex's damage output is extremely good though, and he can sustain himself for a long time if there are a large group of enemies using his special ability. His frail nature among needing to stack specifically healing items, making less room for damage oriented items or other sort of builds, makes Rex somewhat underwhelming. C tier. Oh my god. Esther.
I'm going to die!
So Loda is quite fun and pretty good as well. This may seem confusing at first because I was just talking about how melee characters kind of struggle in this game, but Loda is quite unique compared to other melee classes because he has a hit and run playstyle. He swings around with a grappling hook, charges up a punch, and the faster he's moving the more damage he does per punch. This can make for some insane combos if you just swing around at hypersonic speeds, which is always fun to do, and there's a ton of movement techs you can learn with him. One thing melee characters really struggle with is surviving the early game. Loda has the solution to this in his passive, Scrap Barrier. Upon meleeing any enemy with his primary, he'll gain temporary health. This means he can just sit on a boss and continue slapping them, gaining temporary health every single time he does so, and honestly, the amount you gain for each hit is quite a lot, and you can really tank a lot of damage from the boss while you do this. All of these things combined makes him really fun and really effective. Good character. Esther.
Captain!
Yeah?
Captain is the team support, the glue that keeps everyone together. His damage output is pretty good. He has a solid ability to do a lot of damage. His primary weapon is a shotgun, very fun to use. The longer you hold it, the further it can go in terms of range. That's not his main appeal. His main appeal are his beacons. You can choose whichever type of beacon he wants. He has a healing, an electroshock, an equipment charging one, and a hacking one. The healing just heals you, the electroshock can infinitely stun enemies in its radius. The equipment charge just gives you an extra charge of your equipment 3 times. And the hacking beacon is probably the best one, because it can just hack any consumable, whether it be chests or shrines. This means if you get a legendary chest in a level, you can just hack it for free and get a guaranteed red item. These airstrikes are pretty good. The default is probably the most versatile, as it can be used really quickly and it will always hit its target within a few seconds. The alternative is a giant nuke, which is pretty solid, but you can only really reliably hit bosses with it, and even then you need some timing, so it can be a little difficult to use, but it does way more damage. So his taser is probably his most useless ability. You really only use this to keep someone in your giant nuke radius, and other than that, it can't stun bosses, therefore it's only useful for smaller enemies, and even then its radius isn't huge. Captain also has defensive microbots, which is one of the best passive skills in the game because they accumulate over time and destroy any projectiles that come near Captain. This ups Captain's survivability tenfold. Overall, he's an extremely solid character. He's extremely simple to play, but he provides so much value to your squad, so picking him is always a good option. Plus he's pretty fun as well. Definitely above average, A tier. Heretic, Heretic, Heretic. So if you don't know, Heretic is a secret character you can unlock by grabbing these 4 lunar items. Upon grabbing those, you turn into this bird type creature who uses all 4 of those void abilities but has different base stats. First thing you'll immediately notice is that he has negative health regeneration. Yeah, this guy loses health over time. So first of all, he's a bit like Rex, so you need healing items in order to sustain yourself. But this time it's just to live and not necessarily to do more damage. However, Heretic's other stats are significantly better than any other survivor. His max health is about 3 times the usual survivor's health pool. He does significantly more base damage. He's slightly faster than other survivors and has a triple jump. On top of that, he obviously has all 4 void abilities. Void abilities work really well together. His primary attack will add stacks of ruin onto the enemy. After a few stacks have been accumulated, you can press RB to instantly trigger all stacks, which will do a ton of damage to anyone who has high amounts of stacks, and it scales exponentially. Stack this with your normal items that you'll grab in a run, and Heretic starts doing some real damage really quickly. His secondary is a spinning maelstrom ability that helps deal with groups of enemies. His utility skill makes him invincible for a short time while also healing him at a high rate. This can help expand your lifespan until you can find healing items. Heretic really only has this one strategy though, which is to get as much high damage burst items as possible and spam stacks of ruin. His primary weapon is on a cooldown, and we've already talked about why that can be a bad thing. In all, this doesn't make him the worst survivor in the game, but it does make him the best. I would say he's dead average. Needing the 4 lunar items to turn into him can also be a bit of a challenge sometimes, especially if you don't get the lunar shop. The best survivor to be Heretic, by the way, is Captain, since his defensive microbots will carry over to Heretic. All in all, Heretic is average. He's not the best character in the game, but he's certainly not the worst. You can have some fun runs with him, you just really have to build for it. B tier.
Duke, do you want the ball?
Acred, my mortal enemy. So you know how earlier I said melee characters are pretty weak? Well, Acred is the definition of a weak melee character. His whole gimmick is that he's a hybrid. He's got ranged and melee, but he's not particularly good at either. You can probably see the problem with this. Acred's melee isn't useful by nature of being a melee attack, but because he's a hybrid, he also has a weak projectile attack, meaning his one useful skill is extremely weak. Pair that with subpar abilities that just inflict poison and slowly degrade the enemy's health. Don't finish the enemy unless you use his secondary skills, which use Blight, which scales worse than poison, by the way. And you have a very underwhelming character who can't finish off enemies, doesn't scale well with any items, and can't fill the 2 roles it was designed to fit into better than any other character in the game. That's Acred. F tier. Sorry if this video is a lot different from normal. I just wanted to try something new. Leave a like and subscribe. Talk about it in the comments. I don't mind. Keep in mind this is all just subjective opinion. If I actually made this tier list based on how good the characters were, I would have taken it a lot more seriously. It's more so to make fun of each character, their weaknesses, their strengths, and what makes them fun to me. After all, it's an objectively subjective tier list. If you're not aware, I've been live streaming over on the live tab on this channel. I just finished Clair Obscur and I'll be streaming more games in the future, so check it out if you have the time. Otherwise, have a good day.